Hello, 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 DeSoto, and to all of our neighboring communities. Welcome to the plug of the DeSoto Chamber of Commerce, where your business is our business. I'm your host, Nina Threech, Chairman of the Board for the DeSoto Chamber of Commerce. And you know what? Today's conversation is timely. Timely for our community, our parents, and most importantly, our children. DeSoto, you will get a perspective today from these ladies on who they are as leaders, their focus, their passion, and what changes are taking place right here in DeSoto. So, good morning, and almost good afternoon to our school board president, Miss Deandrea Fleming, and our newest changing champion, our superintendent, Dr. Usamah Rodgers.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Ladies, welcome to the plug today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, I always say when it comes to when we meet with leaders and all, I always talk about how when we come together and there's an agreement there's lots of change and lots of power that's held in that room. And so today's episode is very special and near and dear to the community because our parents, our society definitely want to hear from you ladies because fall is coming up, school is about to happen, so we're ready to hear from y'all. So let's start with you, President Fleming.
Okay.
So tell me a little bit about your leadership journey.
So, look, I think they say are leaders born or are they made? And I think at this moment, because I was called in my mother's womb, I was made. And so I've been a leader, I think, all my life. But I will
like
say
that.
in education, I started out as a classroom teacher. From there, moved into an instructional coach. I was an instructional coach for the entire district in Dallas ISD. Well, not the entire district, but in my network in Dallas ISD. It's where I started my journey as well. From there moved. I was a math department chair. Went back into instructional coaching for the campus. Moved into becoming an assistant principal. Served as assistant principal. Then moved into central staff as a professional development specialist. And then from there moved into principalship. And so became a principal of middle school and high school, and then went into student support services. So I think, like I said, you hear my journey going through the system, but and then decided just to kind of step out, and so I started my own educational consulting business, and it is Market Resilience.
Really?
So my entrepreneur spirit that I've always had, and so
Yes.
even when I was a teacher, I've always been an entrepreneur. So I've owned tax offices,
Yeah.
just any way that I can just be of a service. But I was a math teacher, so anything that I've done has always been related. Excuse me, to finance.
Right.
So just that whole journey of learning my craft, right? And so
Right.
at every level, I understand what it is and what it feels like. And so ultimately, the bottom line is the classroom. And so those decisions
Right.
that you're making as a leader should always be in thought of how does this affect the classroom.
Right, always at the core. So you've definitely had a journey. I mean, from pretty much every facet of education, you've definitely tapped in to utilize your skills and continue on, even going beyond that and
Yes.
enjoy. I always call it the ugly beautiful of entrepreneurship because it is an ugly beautiful journey. So tell me, I'm gonna pivot
Okay.
to our newest change chef. Now she's quiet over here, but y'all don't let this smile fool you guys. This woman here is full of passion, so we'd love to hear from you. Tell me a little bit about your journey.
Well, I knew that I wanted to be an educator from an early age. You've attended some of the events where I shared my story about playing school with my neighbors and
Oh,
collecting
you were
my
the
homework.
you were the one, huh? Out there, make sure you turn in on time.
And so I've had the unique experience to really serve as an educator and an administrator at all levels. So I was a classroom teacher for about 5 years before transitioning into school administration. I have my master's degree and my doctorate degree, both from the University of Texas at Austin.
Okay,
And so,
you a Longhorn.
Yes, but went to Missouri State University for my undergrad degree. But I became an assistant principal at an elementary school. Then I left and actually was a principal at a private school, Mount Hebron Christian Academy in Garland.
Okay.
And then I came back to public school and served as the dean of instruction at a middle school. Then I went to dean of instruction at a high school. Then I was an elementary principal. And I think that's where I really started turnaround work because my school, my first year was a low performing school. Within 3 years, we became a recognized school, and that was really important because we were a school that had students that hit like every bucket in accountability, and so that's where I really cultivated the fact that all means all, because every student at our campus mattered and counted in our accountability if we were going to achieve our goals. And then I had the pleasure of leaving to serve as the founding principal of Cedar Hill Collegiate High School, and that's kind of where I fell in love with the best Southwest. I had amazing parents, and then it was just a spirit in the best Southwest between, you know, all of the school districts and the community and the work that everyone was doing collectively. And I also had the opportunity to work with amazing parents, and they really had to be a part of the journey with us. And I just took the practices that I learned and turned them around my elementary school and implemented them from the beginning. And we were an exemplary school from the beginning, and my students just did amazing things. And that kind of showed me what we have the possibility to do when everybody is working together and collaboratively on the same page in the best interest of students. And so had the opportunity to go back to Dallas ISD to lead a feeder pattern that, much like DeSoto, has a rich history, and but it was at a place that, you know, the light was a little bit dim, and so we had to work hard and galvanize the team to get all of our schools moving. When I took over that feeder pattern, we were the lowest performing feeder pattern in the district. Many of our schools were multi-year improvement required, etc. And then fast forward 4 years later, no improvement required schools and 23 academic distinctions from TEA. And then I got the opportunity to really do something that was unique and innovative and really disruptive, which was open up 18 early college high schools in 1 year across Dallas ISD. And
Really?
so as a result of that work, I actually became someone who's known as a national expert in college and career readiness, and was able to really design some unique systems to improve outcomes. And so thousands of students have graduated with both a high school diploma and an associate's degree in industry-based certifications, but that's not counting the students who leave with credit and escrow. And I think more importantly, what we were able to do at a large scale was help students see themselves beyond their immediate presence, to say, I can do something that is uncommon for people maybe in my neighborhood or things like that, because we were introducing our students to next generation careers, because technology is where it is. And so the opportunity presented itself for me to apply to be the superintendent in DeSoto ISD, and after a long, rigorous process, I was the last man or woman standing, and it's just been amazing. You know, it's everything that I thought it had the potential to be, and I can't wait to see what our collective work does in terms of the outcomes for our students.
Now I have to say, I definitely enjoyed hearing what you were saying, just even from a child's, you know, just so you've always known, even to your core, that you've always wanted to be in education. And what I love about your story is not just yes, you started in the classroom, but you did beyond just that, not just when the times were great or when the students were perfect or it's a perfect school. You actually took on some of the schools where, as you say, the light was dim, and you became a change champion within that, because you absolutely still saw the potential. Even if the diamond was a little rough, just apply a little pressure, and you've been able to withstand that. So that's awesome. And I think so even with that, just kind of segueing into the next question, I'm actually turned to you, President Fleming. Now, you've talked about, you know, just being in the classroom and also going into entrepreneurship, and then also you've actually expanded just even beyond just the classroom, being in the community. So what keeps you serving on the school board? Because you are the school board president for the DeSoto ISD.
Yes. You know what? I think my paycheck that I get from serving as a school board member, and you know, the great raise that the community is given, oh, you know, it keeps you here. And you know, and then for those that are listening, yes, that check that we get is $0
right.
But
make sure you tell the crowd.
So, but no, honestly, what keeps me serving? I told you that I have. Education is my calling.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it is my calling. And so when you are called and you don't do it, then you're convicted. And so what keeps me serving is to make sure that students are always first. You know, everyone has an agenda. I think ultimately when you talk about who does that agenda serve, you know, I feel like a lot of people say they're doing things in the name of children and not for children. And so when we start looking at who are the individuals or who are the adults, you know, at the table who can make the decisions, then you always want someone who's at the table who understands that at the end of the day, this is not about me. I receive nothing from this besides the obedience that I was called to serve. But then ultimately making sure that the children are getting what they need. And so our first duty is to educate. So that's the first thing that keeps me, you know, serving. I think the second thing is the community aspect, right? You know, you are a byproduct of your community. And so, you know, the saying says, you know, be the change that you want to see.
Absolutely.
And so if you're not seeing it, it's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to get involved.
Absolutely.
And I will say, you know, when you get involved, there are things that you want to unsee, right? But ultimately, it's one of those things of if you get mad and this is, you know, to people out there, you know, if you are listening and you do get involved and you don't like it, because sometimes people don't like it and they leave, right? And then they just leave. But you have to ask yourself, if you were positioned to be in that seat and you couldn't fix it, you walking away should never say that it can't be fixed. Just say that you want the person that was able to do the job, because it is a thankless job. You know, you have to serve with your whole heart.
Yes.
And you have to serve when people are, you know, beating up on you.
Right.
You have to serve when you can't please everybody.
Right.
But the greatest reward is when you get it right.
Yes.
And so what are you looking at? People look at things in totality. You know, in the position when you start to serve, you have to look at things in parts.
Right.
And so what part am I working on now? How do I ensure that success is in that? Because if I can apply that model, then I can apply it across the board. And so the community keeps me serving. Why? Because there are people who wholeheartedly, and I think collectively, people wholeheartedly want things to be right.
Right.
It's just, you know, and we all agree on the why. It's just the how that looks different, and somehow the confusion and confliction comes from the how. But, you know, I think thirdly, just what keeps me serving, it really is the ability to wake up and know that you're making a difference. The ability to say, you know what, I was able to plant a seed, whether I saw it blossom, whether I saw it bloom or come to fruition. I hope that the seed that I planted was the ability for someone else to come sit under that shade tree.
Oh, I love it.
And you
Listen,
should know them by their fruit.
I'm about to snap some fingers, but you know, I think it's so important. One of the things that you did mention is, I think, you know, especially as you are a change champion in the community, we can all agree that we want the same goal. Like, we want the community to be better. We want the community to thrive. And sometimes maybe personality or thoughts or ideas or even the how may not always be well received, but you also have to remember, like, who called you for that passion? Like, who he's the one that actually giving you that vision. And that's why some people may not even understand what that is, because they don't have that same vision. But if he called you for
he didn't give it to everybody.
Right, he didn't give it to everybody. And so I think, you know, when God calls you for something, as long as you continue to acknowledge him every step of the way, there's no way that you can fail. And so I just love what you just said, because you take it outside of just the classroom. You go into a role such as yourself with the school board, you know, like you said, as a thankless job. It's a lot of hard work to roll up your sleeves. So I'm a pivot to Dr. Rodgers. So I think too, you know, just segueing into that, when it comes to, you know, your skill set and your passion, like, what led you specifically to DeSoto ISD? You did allude a little bit to it earlier, but I'd love to hear more about about DeSoto ISD is what got you saying, you know what, this is my calling here. This is where God wants me to be right now.
So I'll put it back to my vision board. I've always had on my vision board a desire to be a superintendent of schools, and just understanding that out of the number of school districts in the state of Texas, currently I believe there are only 9 African American females that are superintendents. So becoming a superintendent has probably been about a 10-year journey for me in terms of preparation.
Yes.
By leveraging going to the Texas Alliance of Black School Educators conferences, to those aspiring superintendents sessions, to just mentors of other superintendents who, you know, were saying, you know, much like when people make the leap from going to the classroom to administration, somebody's tapping you on the shoulder saying, I think this would be good for you. So it took a minute for me to embrace that this was a leap I wanted to take, right?
Yes.
Because it is a big leap,
Right.
and a lot of responsibility, and one that I don't take lightly. So just planning, listening, and it was always on my vision board. Once I made up my mind it was something I wanted to do, I put it on my vision board. And just kind of in conversation with people, someone was like, you know, you really should consider applying for DeSoto. And I was kind of like, well, I don't know, I'll pray about it. And they were like, sincerely pray about it. And when I sincerely prayed about it, like I said, I had being a superintendent of schools was on my vision board. It was on my mirror. But after I prayed about it, I started to write superintendent of DeSoto ISD.
Oh, so write it down and make it plain.
So then I actually, then I started to do my homework.
Yes.
And then in doing my homework and the more that I learned about the district, one, there was nothing that has transpired in the district that I'm unfamiliar with.
Okay.
Situations like that, right? Every situation is different, but there was some familiarity in the fact that I've worked in, similar places, and then I started studying the board goals, and I'm like, well, check, I can do all of those things I have experience with. And again, just thinking back to every experience that you have helps prepare you for the next leg of your journey. When you think about the Latin root of curriculum, it's carrere and it's race to be run. And when I think about the places and paths on my journey, and I really got in my quiet space and reflected, I felt like my experiences personally and professionally all aligned that made DeSoto ISD an ideal choice for me, because just as President Fleming talked about, it's not about it's about your personal purpose and passion and really working in that space, that's what's going to motivate you beyond the tough days. And so I had to really just be reflective, and then like I said, it was a rigorous process. So after the first I won't talk about what they put me through.
The process
was a process. And that didn't deter me. And I even joked with President Fleming about my last interview. I was like, it wasn't the greatest, but I persevered through, and the reality was that God said this is the time and this is the place for a couple of reasons. And I think you get to spaces where DeSoto ISD was ready for me, and I was ready for it.
Right, absolutely. And I love that you mentioned about having passion and purpose, because passion and purpose are two different things. You can have passion, but you may not have the purpose for that, or God has maybe given you that purpose, or you may not even have that passion for that yet. Like, Lord, I don't really know. But I think when you truly align both, the amount that you can do, just so much that God can call you to do when they're truly aligned. And so it definitely sounds that way. And so then just piggybacking off of, you haven't gone through the process with DeSoto ISD, and you being ready for DeSoto ISD and DeSoto being ready for you. As far as let's just say maybe the rich history and kind of the culture, what kind of culture do you hope to instill in your teachers and your students, here for DeSoto ISD? What does that mean for you, and what does that look like?
It's real simple, that excellence is the only standard and goal, and that's it, and that's all. That, our students depend on us. In our leadership retreat, what I shared with, our campus administrators is, teachers have unions and students have us. And so we have to set a standard and be unapologetic about holding people to that standard. But you can't hold someone else to a high standard if you don't at least start with that high standard.
Right.
And so being real clear about what it is that we're here for, and we're here but to serve the children and the community and the students first. And so starting with that and getting everybody on a common space of that, and then putting the pieces together so we have a shared vision of what excellence looks like. Because excellence for me might look different if I haven't clearly defined it and explained it, and then giving people the grace and the support to get there, right?
Right.
And so those are the things that that I hope that, one, we are united around a common purpose and vision of doing what's best in the long and short term for all of our students, not just some, but all of our students, and knowing that all truly means all, and being unapologetic about having a standard of excellence, but also being unapologetic in our support, right?
Right.
Because just like you have to inspect what you expect, you also have to support what you expect. And so knowing that that's twofold, and letting people understand that a culture of accountability actually creates greater reward. Because if I know what it takes to win, then you giving me the tools to win,
right,
then everyone is elevated. And so that's what I hope to bring is
Right.
that we are going to work hard and we're going to play hard, and that will be the DeSoto difference.
I
Yep.
love it. I
It's
love
awesome.
so many things that you just, I mean, first of all,
Mhm.
just from, when you talk about the accountability, I think it's so important because when you do hold accountability, there is growth. That growth, you continue to foster discipline within that current growth, and that's how you're able to, continue to transcend. But also, too, because I'm a mother.
Right.
And I love what you said about teachers have the union, but the students have us. That was good, Dr. Rise. I think you need to trademark that because as a parent, it's such a peace of mind to hear that when we think about just with our children, the world will never love our children more than what we do, right?
Absolutely.
And so I'm a firm believer when I send off my children to even daycare. Shout out to DCA with Reagan Francis, DeSoto Children's Academy. When I drop them off, like I don't even think about any worries, like anything that could possibly come. Like I know that they love my children, and just to know like the teachers, when you say that, that just resonates with me as a mother. So I just love that. And so then when you talk about having that standard of excellence and how you plan to implement those initiatives, how does the board come in to support her, President Fleming?
Good. Just that. We support her in the how. Like that literally is the work. I'm saying that because the board gives her the what, she does the how. So we support her in bringing the how to fruition. We have been diligent. The school boards exist to carry out the vision and the values of the community. The school board exists to carry out the vision and the values of the community. So ultimately, when we create board goals, and what you heard Dr. Rodgers speak to the board goals. We created the board goals. We went out to the community. The community said, hey, we approve these. And so the consensus was then we put them in adoption. So from there, you needed a leader to carry out the how. When you talk about culture and climate, we know that it teeter-totters, right? There's a lot that goes into it, but it takes one thing to destroy it. And so, just being intentional, we have goals that are set around Dr. Rodgers' evaluation that talks about the culture and climate of the community. And so we get that feedback. And so for our community members, for our parents, we ask that they do those surveys because that's how we know to take the temperature of the district.
Absolutely. I will say that, especially the surveys, parents are people, let me say it that way, just to make it a general statement, will be quick to complain, but don't participate in the vote or the service or whatnot or the survey.
Absolutely.
Just so that the leaders can know, like you can't fix a problem that you don't know.
You don't know about it.
Or that it is such a pain, to really take the time to just, work through. And so I love that.
Thank you.
I love that. And so, when you talk about the support for each other, like how has that been so far? What I love, especially as you came on, Dr. Rodgers, like even when we did our welcome breakfast for you, the school board, not just our president, but the school board was there to support you. I'm just loving all of the camaraderie and the cohesiveness because you need that. So how has it been so far for you both, or the overall?
You know what?
Not to put you, of course you're gonna say, but but I think it's a great energy. I do.
No, it's a fact. I think that's evident. When I had a crazy idea, I was like, we all gonna do a dance at convocation, and they were like, "You want us to what, Dr. Rodgers?"
Right.
But you know what? They all did it. And like, you gotta see the video. Cause
I can't wait to see the video.
Trustee Daniel was getting down.
Yes,
Trustee Cooper was
Yes.
they were all. Trustee Banks, even though she's having little issues with her hip, she was there. And I think that speaks to, and they all show up.
Yes.
And it's all whatever you need. And I think that's what, I'm gonna back up a little bit, right? People like to hold you hostage to your past. And so I think, people are holding our board a little bit hostage to the past, and they have evolved to such such a very different place.
Yes.
And I would say whatever happened to the point that, the vote on May 16, 2022 took place, and, it was 7-0 that I was the superintendent. I have received nothing but support from all 7 other trustees that serve. The only question that I get is, Dr. Rodgers, this is brought to our attention. How are you handling it, and how can we help? And I think that's how we continue to move forward and just continue to over communicate that to people. Like, it is a different day in DeSoto ISD, and yes, there are past hurts, and yes, there is trauma, but we're pressing forward because our students deserve us to show up and press
Yes.
forward. And the only way that we achieve our goals are together. Now, is
Yes.
there hierarchy? Absolutely. The board sets the tone with the goals, with the expectations. And then they also have the responsibility to evaluate me and hold me accountable for doing those things.
Right.
And in the midst of that, they have the right, to, the responsibility of when I bring things to them to vote, to one, do their homework, and what people don't see is this hundreds of pages a month that they go through to make informed decisions. And there are safeguards that are in place with the district just because of the past, right? I
Right.
think that would be irresponsible of them as the board to just say, here is, carte blanche. And so I knew and understood what I signed up for, and
Yeah.
so knowing that, we've been very intentional about having clear, open, and honest communication.
Absolutely. And so then into what you identified as, especially with the board goals and just going over some things that, like you just mentioned about, maybe there's some ideas or some thoughts, or maybe there's some past trauma or hurts. What is the biggest hurdle that you can identify, and how do you plan to tackle it?
I think being courageous in the conversation.
Okay.
And the biggest hurdle that we do have to overcome is the past and people wanting to hold us hostage to the past. I think that is really the biggest thing, that there is a new dawn and a new day and a new awakening and a new breath and a new sense of energy and pride. And there is a shift in DeSoto ISD.
Yes.
And the reality is some people want to keep us back in that negative space and have those conversations, or want it to be something that is dissension. And we can't serve kids well if we're dealing
Right.
with adult problems. And
Right.
so we're focused on what we're doing in service and support of our students. And the
Right.
way that we serve and support our students well is to ensure that there is victory in the classroom, that the teachers have what they need. And so the board made a very courageous decision on June the 8th when they decided that, you know what, it's a tough decision to say only these people who directly touch students will get a raise, because we had to do that. And so, being able to make the tough decisions to do what we need to do for kids. And the way that we do that is, one, make sure that the teachers have the tools that they need to be successful, that building leaders are equipped with the knowledge, skills, and tools to lead their building effectively, to make sure that we are prioritizing our main thing. And because we're working to prioritize our main thing, there may be some people who get a no who are used to getting a yes. But if we are saying, if we're putting our money where our mouth is, and we're doing what people have demanded that we do, was create a school district of excellence and change, then what we're going to ask is for people to support us in that and not hold us hostage to the past, whether that's good or bad.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think too, with you, President Fleming, especially like Dr. Rodgers has mentioned about not being held hostage to the past, you guys definitely do have a tremendous responsibility in who you hire, who you select, because it does affect the community and it does affect the children. It sounds quite evident that you guys are definitely turning a new leaf. And then with hiring Dr. Rodgers, and how do you see the future with identifying any of the hurdles that Dr. Rodgers just mentioned?
Yeah, she has 7 board members, and that's a board member for each day of the week. So just like each day of the week is not going away, you have 7 members that are not going away. But, one thing I want to say, the hurdle is exactly what she said it was. But the excitement behind the hurdle is that because you have a board member for each day of the week, each day you have an opportunity to get better, right? And so you get better in the vision, you get better in the mission, you get better in what we said we were going to do. And so what we were going to do is what we've been held accountable to, right? And so we know that we have a conservator in DeSoto ISD. We know that there's been a journey which comes with the history of the conservator.
Right.
But as we approach October, one thing that we're pretty excited about is that once we have these things in place, that our conservator will leave DeSoto ISD, and so that is a celebration within itself because it is a tribute to the work. And so when people are still feeling in a space that things have not changed, in order for a conservator to leave, things have to have changed.
Right.
But it's not about the conservator leaving, and I want to express that like we are here to make sure that we improve student outcomes.
Right.
That is our first goal. And so when the conservator leaves, there are things that are already been in place. And so we're excited about that because once the conservator leaves, though, that's where where you have to show your money, right? Can you continue this without supervision? And so I'm excited because I think we definitely can. We have things in place, but we just need people to come alongside. And we all have hope, but we're not willing to sacrifice what it takes in order to ensure that hope is stabilized.
Yes.
And so that's what we're excited about.
I love that. I love that. So then, I mean, obviously, it's just an obvious part for me to segue into the future. I think one of the questions that we all want to know is, what do you guys want parents, students, our community to know about the changes, obviously, that we're talking about, the exciting upcoming initiatives, or even just the future overall for DeSoto ISD? I'll start with you, President Fleming, just because you had already alluded.
Yeah, don't believe us, just watch. I keep saying it. I do lead with that
Hey,
every time.
don't believe it, just watch. I like that.
Because it's real, right? I think at a point, we all come and we want things done, sometimes how we want them done, but ultimately, if it is getting done, when do we start saying, okay, I can stop watching here, but you should never stop watching. But you can, when I'm saying watch, people watch with the intent to criticize. People are watching for the intent to say, aha, that they,
Right.
oh, they messed up again.
Right.
They did this. But what if we flip that? What if we said, aha, they got it right, and so now I can't wait to see what they get right next. I think it really is changing the mindset of why we're here. I'm a parent too. My son is in the district.
Hey.
And so, waking up every day that I have an investment in the district. And so I don't want to see anything go backwards. And so I'm really excited about, again, Dr. Rodgers laying an infrastructure. One of the things that, we were so adamant about when we were looking for a leader is someone who could come in and build a foundation that said, here are the things that DeSoto does well. And here are the things that we can get better at. But then also, turning that key over to her to say, what does DeSoto look like in the future? Like when people say DeSoto, what do they think of? Who do they think of? What students are we attracting? What families we are attracting? And so just that excitement out of building these partnerships. I think the future is the partnership that we have with the chamber. We talk about the, economics and the processes that we have with businesses that can come into the schools, that can create the partnership for our students. Like I get excited about that because I think we're moving into a space where this is not just look at us, but come look at us and model after us.
Yes.
And so if you leave nothing else, it is that we want to be the model. When they ask how do you get school right, how do you make sure that every student individually are receiving what their parents send them to school for, and then what they expect from themselves, right? We should have better conversations with our students to find out what it is they want to do. And so we have a leader that can actually get in and find out what is it that every student wants, and how do we create a system around ensuring that they get that.
I love it. I love it. Dr. Rodgers, what do you want the community to know? Parents, students.
I want them to know that it takes all of us working together to achieve the goal. The other thing is, we have to get the foundation right. And so, it goes in layers and steps. If you say, like, what's one thing that President Fleming and I want to talk about, like, she was like, we're going to do that right now, Doc. And I'm like, you know what, I got it. It's in the back of my mind. Just let me get this checked off.
Right.
And so I'm a person, I kind of work through the list. But ultimately, at my core as an educator, I'm an innovator. And I'm a disruptor, and really forward thinking. So we have some big ideas that we're not quite ready to let out the bag yet.
All
just
right.
because
Just give us a little tease. Look at this. She just teasing already.
No, that's just a fact. I like to, have the house clean when the company comes. So when we roll it out, we're not talking about it. We're going to be about it. And that's what I want people to understand. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? There have been a lot of promises that have kind of fallen by the wayside. And so instead of saying this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to come talk after the fact to say, you know what, this is what we did. And people to see it. So we are really, like President Fleming said, working on making sure that our foundation is correct. discounting the fact that last year was a rough year, and even despite of it being a rough year, there were academic gains, so continuing to build upon that, but just making sure that we have a solid foundation, and then once we have those things in place, we have some pretty innovative things that are coming down the pike that I believe the community will be really excited about.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, I was going to ask about some upcoming events and things, but I think it sounds like you're just going to keep the lid on for now and just surprise us.
Well, I have a few things. So August the 13th, this Saturday, we have a back to school fair at the Academy. So we want everybody to come out. We do need everybody to complete their online enrollment and registration. So I want us to have the best first day of school ever. The way that we have the best first day of school ever is that all of our students have been accounted for in the system, so we can make sure that we have their schedules and things like that. So one ask of parents, if you haven't registered your children, thank you to the over 4,000 who have, but there are quite a few who have not, and I won't ask President Fleming if she
I didn't mind. I did it.
So if everybody could get their registration completed, that would help us out. But we have a great back to school fair coming up. We also have open houses this week, so the 10th and the 11th, all of our schools will be open for Meet the Teacher and Meet the Principal. And we're just excited that we had a great convocation to welcome our teachers back, and we are looking forward to our communications team has put together a great packet for our principals as we welcome our students back to their best first day ever. So there are lots of exciting things on the horizon in DeSoto ISD.
Well, I'll be there. I'm actually going to be a greeter at Catherine Johnson. I'm excited, y'all. I'm excited. Me and my chair-elect Karen, shout out to you. We will definitely be there to greet the children on their first day of school. So I'm extremely excited. So then also too, then, you know, where can they find, y'all, I can't get my words out. Where can they, like, to keep up with real-time events and information, like, where can they find that?
So they can follow us on social media. So we're on Twitter at DeSoto Engage, DeSoto ISD Engage. So you can look us up. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. And then we have lots of updates on our district webpage. So we are really working hard to share the exciting news and information and events.
Well, I got another question too. This is actually posed from some of the parents that I've talked to. Now, as far as backpacks, there's been some talk around that. Is it going to be clear backpacks or just normal designer backpacks that we normally see?
Right, so it's a normal backpacks, and so then I'll take it to the next question, which is probably what is the dress code and are there uniforms? And so there were questions about that last year, and there was, to your point earlier about surveys being sent out, there were surveys that were sent, but it was just very limited response, and so we were not able to come up with a definitive if parents wanted mandatory uniforms or not. The district does have a dress code that has been in effect, and we are definitely enforcing our dress code. But then we also have a recommended standardized dress, which is gold polo style shirts on Monday, green polo style shirts on Tuesday, professional dress days on Wednesday, because your school experience is your launch pad to your future career. And so we want everyone to just kind of take it up a notch on Wednesdays to get over the hump with professional dress day. Thursday is college and career day, so we encourage our students to wear college or career shirts. And then Friday are DeSoto Spirit days. But our district dress code has been and will continue to be enforced whether students are choosing to participate in our standardized dress or not. But we hope that they participate because we want to build a sense of community and a sense of pride, and to just have our students not so much be focused on their outwardly appearance, but actually on what it is that they're learning each day when they come to school.
I love that. Thank you so much. You're welcome, teachers. You're welcome. I'm going to pivot into something. Let's shake it up a little bit, President Fleming, Dr. Rodgers. So I know we've talked a lot about just your passions and what led you into education. Obviously, it's evident in your passion of still being here. What is your favorite memory or experience as an educator? I'll start with you, President Fleming.
Wow. You know what? I will actually have to say my first year teaching. It's my first year teaching. I was, destined to be an attorney, and my mom was a teacher for 40-something years. She taught in Dallas and DeSoto, and she said, hey, you need to just have a fallback. Just be able to come in here and teach for a year, take some time off, and then go back to law school, right? And I was like, okay, I'm going to I'm going to do
Do
that.
that.
Came in as an AC, which is alternative certification. I came in and I taught sixth grade self-contained. So self-contained is every subject area in one classroom by one teacher.
Oh
So
my
all the
gosh.
different lesson plans, and I was a first year teacher. And so when I got my roster of students, I realized that these babies had not been successful on the state assessment. And I do mean all of them, and I do mean since third grade. Not one of them had passed since third grade because it's third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Third grade is when they start testing. And so went to work, right? Like, okay, how do you make this happen? How do you conceptualize as a first year teacher? Well, as Dr. Rodgers said, I've been playing school for a very long time. You know, you get worksheets. I've done that. I just never thought I would do it because I knew that,
Right.
school took my mom away from me. I shared it with all the
Right.
children
Mhm.
in her time. And so as we're going through, I'm like, okay, how do I do this? So I leaned on my mom for a lot of it and just showing me how to make sure that I was being intentional about the students. And so they had to take their assessment in reading and math. By the end of the year, it was literally looking at students who had been, deflated, who had been defeated, who said, you know what, I haven't done this before, so there's no expectation of me.
Mhm.
Going in, speaking life into those babies, letting them know, hey, here's the expectation. You will pass this test. I am your teacher. I may be a first year teacher, but we're going to pass, okay? And so at the end of the year, fast forward, we get the results back, all 24, and I had students that had learning disabilities. I had students of all different backgrounds. I had EL students who were which is English learners that were in my classroom. And so ultimately all 24 of them passed both reading and math. I had 14 of them who had mastered and back then it was recognition. They were academically recognized, and so they received that. And so watching babies in sixth grade cry as you're calling their names out, I mean, and literally pushing them, because I know what it was like in the classroom. And they were like, oh my gosh, she has to be the meanest person ever. But I knew who they were, and I knew who they were called to be. And so my greatest memory was having that and having the recognition from central staff come in and say, well, who is she and what does she do and how does she do this?
Right.
And so at that moment, I think that is why, and you ask, why do I serve? I always come to tears for that, because I just remember parents coming up to me and were thanking me because they had not felt success. And that whole part of, if you can get every child to feel this moment of success every day that they're in school, and the experiences that they're receiving was that teachers came in and said, you know what, I don't care about your background, I don't care about your circumstances. I know you can learn, and I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that you get there if you trust me and I trust you in the process. So that is like my greatest memory, because it is the reason why I stayed. And so I always say this, my fallback became my absolute fall in love with. And so I don't see anywhere else that I ever want to be. And so just to do this work in this position, again, it is a free position, and I don't take it lightly, because in what people see the free is, the value is that we're doing this for every student. And so
Absolutely.
the value of a student, priceless.
I love that. I love that story. I think, just listening to that, you definitely made an imprint on those students. And it's like, for that one moment, they knew success, they knew value, and it was, even to Dr. Rodgers' point about it being a launch pad into their future. I just love how you made an impact for them, and it was like a seed that was watered, and it showed that they really can pass their test. They really are, intelligent, and they are, and ultimately they matter.
They matter.
I love that. Dr. Rodgers, I'm ready to hear, what is your story? Because I want y'all to know I have one too, but I'm going to let y'all.
Okay.
I think it would probably be the same thing, but it's a fast forward 20 years later story.
Okay.
So I started teaching at 21 in Kansas City, and I taught at the school where my grandmother was a custodian in the heart of Kansas City. And I had a rough class, much like, with students who they had a teacher. She left in the middle of the year, and I, had a job. But what was most memorable for me was the impact. So the power of social media. So one of my former students reached out to me from that class on Facebook, and he was just like, I just wanted to let you know what I am doing now. I, have a foundation where I give back to the community. I'm a business owner, and, you knew that I was this little boy that was getting in trouble, and you went above and beyond, and had, my husband at the time to come and kind of talk to the young man, and he was like, it just made a difference. And as a result of that, it just made me want to, play it forward. And so this young man has a foundation where he does a big Thanksgiving drive and just multiple things in the community. So, a lot of times as a teacher, you never get to know what the
Mhm.
impact is that you have, or those small things. And so
Absolutely.
for through the power of social media, this young man to reach out to me and just say, hey, Miss Rodgers, I just want you to know, um, the little things that you did
Right.
mattered, and this is the impact that it had on me. And there are lots of stories that I could say of professional educators or this or that, but I really think I would share that message just much like President Fleming to that first year teacher, that how you show up in that classroom every day matters to the students that you serve. And you may never have the pleasure of someone coming back to you to say that what you did made a difference, but what we do matters.
Absolutely. I love that story. And definitely for him to reach back out to you definitely speaks to just how you were and how you impacted him as well. So I actually have a story.
Okay.
Actually, let me start with a fun fact. So my children's father, he's an educator. His twin sister's an educator. My mother-in-law, she's an educator. Matter of fact, she retired, y'all, and she came back when my daughter started pre-K just so she can go to school with my daughter, and then retired again.
Wow.
And then her parents, both her parents were actual educators as well. My grandmother-in-law was a principal for over 30 years, and her husband as well was an educator. And so back when I was in grad school, I was running professionally because track and field was my sport. And so I was in grad school, and I was actually one of the PE coaches for Ruston Elementary at Louisiana Tech University. And there was not a track team there. So I actually started like a cross-country team for the boys and the girls, and they actually won nationals 2 consecutive years in a row. And so I actually coached also the boys as well. And similar to your story, Dr. Rodgers, one of the boys, DeMarcus Harris, he actually reached out to me, and this was like maybe a couple years ago. Like it's been like almost 20 years, and he was like, "You were the hardest coach I have ever known, but I surely appreciate everything that you did because it really, bled into everything that I do." So I just wanted to at least say that I can share a little bit of the education committee, just a little bit. But ultimately, thank you, ladies, so much. It has been such a pleasure just listening to you both about your passions, and also about what's happening right here in DeSoto. In DeSoto, we need it. We absolutely need champions literally right here in our backyard, rooting for our children because, as Dr. Rodgers says, the teachers have the union, but guess what? The children have us, and I love that. Thank you both, ladies, for taking the time to come on to the plug. We really appreciate you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, ladies and gentlemen out there, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, definitely feel free to send it to us and like us on our YouTube channel as well. There's also some space there to add your comments. Please share, like, and subscribe to the plug. Well, your business is our business. We look forward to continuing to support you. Now, we do have some events coming up too as well. The fourth Tuesday of each month is our Power Her Network, and this is actually featuring Miss Alicia, who's part of our marketing here at the Chamber, and she's going to do a lot of different things with hair and hair tips and locks. And y'all, I've always wanted to do faux locks. I think I might just get, froggy enough to go ahead and get them in there. But until next time, thank you all so much, and look forward to seeing you next time.